In today's show, Locked On NBA, we're going to be talking with one of the hosts of the Locked On Cavs podcast. Chris Manning is here with us, and we are going to talk about the trade that brought in Lauri Markkanen to Cleveland. Stay tuned. It's coming up. You're not going to want to miss it.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. We're getting ready. Let's talk to Chris Manning. But before we do talk to Chris Manning, if you are like an NBA general manager, you might need help hiring and getting the right people for your business. When you're hiring, you can use Indeed assessments to make sure that you find the right candidates with the skills that you need. When hiring gets hard, you need Indeed, the job site that makes hiring incredibly simple. Just attract, interview, and hire. In fact, with Indeed, you can do all of your hiring in one place, even the interviewing. Don't just hope your perfect candidate will find you. Indeed's hiring tools help you cut through the noise to hire faster and smarter. In fact, Indeed Instant Match provides a list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed, they're there. They match with you the moment that you post that job. According to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined. So, get started right now with a $75... Is that a typo? $75 sponsored job credit. Wow. Upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked. A $75 credit at Indeed.com/locked. Indeed.com/locked. Offer valid through September 30th. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so here he is, the man, one of the hosts of the Locked On Cavs podcast. Chris Manning is here with us on Locked On NBA. Chris, the Cavs have made a move. They have decided to acquire Lauri Markkanen in a sign and trade. They're sending out Larry Nance. Despite Larry Nance being, I guess, the face of the franchise and the heart and soul of this team, he didn't really fit in with the time frame of the other young players on the squad. Lauri Markkanen's acquisition and the amount that they pay him, 3 years guarantee, partial guarantee in the 4th year for $60+ million overall, I think the contract is. It is a little strange considering the re-signing of Jarrett Allen, the drafting of Evan Mobley. Look, taking a flyer on talent is totally fine, but how do you see this Lauri Markkanen acquisition? Is it just a case of we're getting someone who is talented and we'll see where it goes, rather than the way that I guess I see it, and that you're investing probably a little bit too much in the 4 and 5 positions?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I tend to agree more with you because I think I've never been a big Lauri guy, right? Like I've never been a particularly huge believer in what he is. There's only one skill that I think he's definitively better at than Larry Nance Jr., and that would be 3-point shooting, right? Like the Cavs need that. They've not been a good offensive team. Their spacing has been quite bad the last couple of years. So like I think like that is a thing that makes sense. If you're going to say, okay, we needed shooting, let's go get him. But he's a worse defender, worse rebounder, worse passer. Like I don't know what else he's really providing. And it is a lot of money for a guy that seemingly didn't have like a big market this summer. And yes, like he's younger. I think like the heart and soul of Nance can be overstated a little bit just because like he is from the area and everything. And I think like it was clear in his open letter that he penned that, you know, he did want to go somewhere where winning was kind of going to be a more immediate thing for him. So like I get it from a talent play, but like is Lauri Markkanen worth, he's going to make like 15 something a year. Is he worth like $13 million a year more than Dean Wade? I don't know. And like that makes this sort of like a tricky thing. And again, to give him 4 years, even if the last year has some non-guarantee, it's steep to me. I think it's a little bit of an overpay, but I can understand how they get there, even if I don't know if I would have done the same thing here.
I don't believe this, but I'm going to throw it out there because some people do seem to think that, is that the fact that they drafted Evan Mobley number 3, and then they went on to spend $100 million on Jarrett Allen and then $60+ million on Lauri Markkanen, is there any indication there that they're like, oh, we're not sure with Evan Mobley? Maybe we're a little bit, just hedging our bets on that position, that we're not, is he the center of the future? Oh, well, you've just spent $100 million on Allen. Or can you play power forward? Well, you've just spent $60+ on Markkanen. Is there any truth to the people that might be viewing it that way?
I think it's crazy to be thinking about that in terms of Mobley. I think if you're looking at it in terms of like what the future may hold, it's okay. Like let's see where Mobley gets. Let's give ourselves 2 options of guys in house that we can maybe pair with him once we figure out what exactly he is. I tend to think Allen's a much better player. I think Allen could maybe not like in 3 years will maybe not be the better fit if Mobley adds weight and it kind of develops into a 5, but I think it's the idea of like, okay, we want to get two kinds of bigs to play next to Mobley, who could be our generational franchise guy, and then see in a couple of years which one fits. And then, maybe one of the contracts runs up. Maybe you can trade one of them. Like, I think that's it. I think the Cavs, despite talking about like wanting to take a big step forward, I think internally, and I think they believe internally, and I think looking at them, I still think this is a team that is still trying to slowly level itself up here more than making a big leap. So I think they're trying to plan a little bit for the future in this move, as crazy as that sounds, considering how much money is attached to Mobley's deal, or to Markkanen's deal.
Yeah, I don't really have any sort of issues in terms of that regarding Mobley. I don't think that is any sort of indication there. I think possibly or probably long term the better fit will be Markkanen and Mobley, just because Mobley will play center. He's provides some duplicate skills to what Allen does in terms of rim protection, but he's a better passer. He's more dynamic, and then having Markkanen as a spacing threat, I think if that ends up working, Mobley can cover some of Markkanen's defensive issues, whereas, again, you're sort of duplicating that with Allen out there and not bringing the shooting ability. But we will see how that all goes. But, of course, re-signing Allen, drafting Mobley, bringing in Markkanen in that sign and trade. What it does, where does this leave Cavs legend and notoriously pissy veteran Kevin Love? Like, what's his future? Because the Jeff Schwartz, his agent, leaking to Woj not leaking, just flat out telling him, no, we haven't engaged in buyout talks. There's $60 million left for 2 years for Love. Like, what does his future hold? Is he going to get J.R. Smith this year and just say, Kev, just don't worry about it. We'll pay you. Don't bother coming in. Will they buy him out? Will they send him out for a second round pick? Like, what's happening with Kevin Love?
I tend to think that the Jeff Schwartz of it all and like him saying like there's no interest is really just about money. So like I tend to think that the reality for both sides is that I think a buyout just makes the most sense, right? Like I tend to think that the biggest thing that would make sense for Kevin, like he's already made a lot of money. He's not going to have to give back all of the $60 million he's gotten from Cleveland. Or is owed from Cleveland, excuse me. I think the reality here is that like he's almost 33. He's got a very short window, depending on what his health is going to be like, for him to sort of figure this out. And I look at this and I think, okay, like this is posturing. So for comparison, I think the only obvious comparison point here is the Blake Griffin situation last year, just because that's like the only, this is sort of a new development with like guys on these big contracts and the buyouts of it all. So Griffin last year, $75 million left when he was bought out, gave back 13.3. So that's a little bit under 18%. So if Love were to give back 18% of his contract, $10.8 million would he'd have to go. So he'd still get paid 50 something for Cleveland. I mean, maybe they're trying to angle it for like a little bit less than that to give back less and just keep more. Like the deal for on the Cleveland side of things, I think is already very clearly just a massive mistake. It has eaten up cap room that they could have used this summer to chase needed wing help in like a Josh Hart or something like that. Like, I tend to think Kevin would be happier in Brooklyn or with the Lakers or with the Blazers, funnily enough. Like, and it's just about finding the figure that makes most sense for everyone. I don't know if this goes into the season. I would be blown away if there's a trade because I just don't know where you're trading him, really. Like, I don't know who is, like, unless Sam Presti is going to do something with you, like, where else is he really going at this point? I think a buyout ultimately is just going to be what this comes down to. But Kevin, it would seem, is kind of indicating, hey, like, I'm going to get out of here with the most amount of money I can before I agree to a buyout and not give away a bunch of money just because frankly, the Cavs, like, you agreed to pay me this money. Like, I'm going to take all of my money, and I kind of applaud that, honestly.
Yeah, like, he shouldn't be in any rush to do it. It's like, okay, don't play, we'll pay you. Play, we'll pay you. Look, whatever it is, like, he's in that position. They offer him the contract. He signed the contract. It does feel like it's not something necessarily that's going to get resolved before the beginning of the season. Maybe we're still a couple of months away from that, but I feel like it's going to be something that drags into December.
Yeah. And just with Kevin, like, I don't think he would be like, I just can't imagine this, like, especially with Larry gone. And him and Larry was one of the guys that he played with when he did. Delhi's obviously back in Australia now as well. Kevin is the last guy from the 2016 title team left. Yep. There's no one else from the 2018 team that made the finals left. Like, I don't think he has like deep connections with this roster at this point. I think that's pretty evident. So like, I kind of think the reality for him is like, I don't think there's a lot left for him here, and aside from the money, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm sure. Look, and $60 million is a big enticement. There is no doubt.
Yeah, I would like $60 million.
I'll pass that on to David, and we can have a chat about getting you a
maybe
extension.
maybe you and I can split 60. Like we'll just kind of like I'll like David. Look, you give it instead of 60 to two people, each 60 apiece. We'll just take 30. It's great.
Easy done. Negotiations sorted. Chris, you'll have it all for us over on Locked On Cavs. Yeah, so if you want to hear the news on Kevin Love, whenever something does go down, Chris and Evan will have that over on Locked On Cavs. Thanks for jumping on Locked On NBA with me, Chris.
Josh, always a pleasure.